For those of you who are new to my channel and haven't seen me making milk kefir, this is something that I do pretty much every day. It is a part of my daily homemaker routine. I talked about this more in a recent podcast. In case you're curious about the whole process of milk kefir, my podcast is called the Simple Farmhouse Life Podcast. I also have an article on my blog, farmhousehomeboon.com, on milk kefir, but it really couldn't be simpler. You take these cultures called milk kefir grains, put them in with milk, and let it ferment at room temperature, strain them off, and repeat. I've had the same milk kefir grains for over a decade now. They multiply, and so I've given them to friends, composted them. As you can see, currently I have way too many of them. I am also feeding my sourdough starter and moving it to a new container because I needed to clean out the jar it was in. I do that on occasion, and making a smoothie, which is something I start every single morning with. There is a superfood right now that is currently going viral, and as someone who grew up on a farm, I've been hearing this word for a long time and I know how important it is. It's recently something that seems like everybody is adding to their wellness routine, and that is colostrum. And today's video sponsor is Armra, who is the unrivaled leader in colostrum. Colostrum is a dairy bioactive food produced by all mammals. It's the first nutrition we receive in life and contains all the vital nutrients our bodies need to thrive. Armra collects colostrum only after calves are fully fed. Armra also improves nutrient bioavailability by removing casein and fat, and the only colostrum on the market with third-party clinical research. Armra colostrum strengthens immunity, which is especially helpful this time of year. In research, Armra colostrum triggered a rapid and 32% stronger immune response against harmful LPS particles compared to other available colostrum. What I like Armra the best for is gut health. So it reduces bloating, supports my gut microbiome. I love having it first thing in the morning in my kefir smoothie. That's where I like to add it to improve skin health, immunity, and set my gut up for success. Again, thanks to Armra Colostrum for sponsoring today's video. Head to tryarmra.com/farmhousehomeboon or enter code farmhousehomeboon to get 15% off your first order. I am making some chicken breast today. We like to do this a lot where we'll make chicken and serve it with mashed potatoes, vegetables, whatever we have. Right now it's tons of green beans. I put the drippings that fell off the chicken back into the pan to deglaze it along with some red onions. Someone asked me recently how I deglaze the pan if we don't have any wine. Some people don't keep any wine or anything like that in their kitchen. And if I don't have wine, I just use broth or water. Even onions sometimes have enough liquid to deglaze a pan that everything's really stuck on. Also, after loosening it up a bit with the drippings from the chicken and the onions, I pour in some cream or milk and salt and let it kind of thicken and sit with the chicken. It makes it very tender and just a really easy, quick way to make chicken that you didn't marinate or prepare in any way. Top it with some fresh herbs and it's so good. I had jars of pumpkin puree in the fridge as well as a pie crust stashed in there. So I'm making some from scratch pumpkin pie. You can find this on my website, farmhouseonboone.com. We enjoy this many times throughout the fall season. I've talked a lot about on this channel and on my podcast how I operate in my kitchen in more of a flow and a rhythm as opposed to rigid meal plans. So because of that, I didn't really know what I was going to make today, but I do keep on hand the things that I need to make basic recipes and staples so that we're prepared. And so happened that a friend texted me today a link to a presentation by Sue Becker from Bread Beckers. And it's not that I was not aware of all the benefits of whole grains. I obviously was because I've been milling grains for over a decade now and I stock 50-pound bags of wheat berries and all of that good stuff. But it just really reminded me the nutritional benefits and how rich whole grains are. So it's funny because she sent over this podcast today and just as quick as I could get out my grain mill, I am making everything with whole grains because I was so quickly convinced that I shouldn't be putting any all-purpose flour in this. A lot of times I'll tell you that I make most things with half whole grain, half all-purpose. That's what I've been doing for so long, just because we get the texture and all of the beauty and flavor with the all-purpose flour, but then half of the recipe will have that whole grain for the health benefits. Well, today I was all fired up and pumped up because of listening to that podcast or presentation that was sent over on YouTube that I was like, I'm making everything that I make today with whole grain. Now, don't hold me to that because I'll go back. I'm sure at some point this happens. It's always an ebb and a flow where I'll hear some information, I'll get all excited about it, and then I will slowly, switch back into whatever insert ingredient that maybe isn't perfect, but still I feel like at home from scratch food, especially long fermented sourdough, you can't really go wrong. But today I am taking a lot of my own recipes from farmhouseonboone.com and from my new book, Daily Sourdough. I'll leave links below. And just subbing one for one whole grain flour into those recipes. I get so many questions about that. Like, how do you adapt recipes that call for all purpose and do them with whole grain? And I can tell you that for years, I have just been subbing them one for one. Sometimes it benefits from a little bit more liquid, and from a little bit more time allowing the grains to soak up the liquid component of the recipe. So like when you're making a bread, mixing together the whole grain flour, the water, the honey, and then just letting it sit there and really soak it all up, and spending about an hour before doing the stretch and folds, as opposed to maybe 30 minutes in an all-purpose recipe. But today I subbed everything 1 for 1 and it all turned out delicious. Right now I am making my sourdough pumpkin muffins. You can find them on farmhouseonboone.com. They have a lovely crumble topping. My kids really enjoy them. So just like with any sourdough recipe, you can develop the dough by kneading it right up front with a dough hook or by hand, or you can just throughout the day do stretch and folds at intervals of your choosing. Honestly, I'd like to do about 3 to 6 for any recipe, probably about 30-ish minutes apart. I do not measure, but with whole grain, letting it sit a while before doing those really helps. Throughout the day, as I do more and more stretch and folds, the dough becomes more pliable, more stretchy, something that at first feels very breakable and shaggy, like it might not actually ever come together, eventually does, even with whole wheat. My sirloin tip roast cooked for an hour at high pressure, and then I just let it sit in there all day. It automatically went to warm. I like to take the dripping, so I'll just take the Instant Pot insert, put it right on my stovetop, add some flour and salt, thicken it up like a gravy, and then put the meat back into it. It adds a ton of flavor. I'm doing a few more stretch and folds on my doughs for today before allowing them just to ferment, not in a super warm spot because I don't want them to over ferment, but my house is a little bit cooler right now. And then the next day, I divide them and let them do their second rise before baking. Even though they were 100% whole grain and I just swapped everything one for one, they turned out so wonderful. The best recipes, in my opinion, to make whole grain would be something like rolls, buns, I already mentioned, pancakes, all that kind of stuff. Boule, that you put in a cast iron Dutch oven, probably not the thing to try. I mean, it's fine too, totally fine. But I feel like you get more comparable results when doing something like this. Nobody in your family will probably even notice, and their health will notice.